initially it was involving only the feet, but has now gradually progressed till the knees. It is
Yes.
present. It was initially involving only the feet, ma'am, but has gradually progressed till the knees now.
Okay. It's up to the level of knee. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
It is present throughout the day and it reduces in lying down or when the legs are raised.
So after getting up from sleep, he is able to notice that it has come down.
Uh, when he lies on the bed, he notices that it's come down. Otherwise, if his legs are kept in a raised position,
Then what is the reason for that? How do you explain?
I think it's gravity dependent, ma'am.
Yeah, so you have to see in the presacral area so as to identify the dependent edema. Okay, proceed, proceed.
There's no
Okay,
associated scrotal swelling. There is no
okay,
history of puffiness of face or reduced urine output. There is no
okay.
history of chest pain or palpitations, and there is no history of breathlessness.
Whether there is associated abdominal pain?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that is more important. Okay, okay, that also you should be telling. Okay, proceed.
Yellowish discoloration of eyes was noted since the last 7 days. There is no
Okay.
history of itching, high colored urine, or pale stool.
Then what is the reason? Only yellow is discoloration of the eyes, okay? But it
Yes,
has
ma'am.
to be associated either with high colored urine or pale stool or something or the other should be there to categorize into hepatocellular or obstructive or hemolytic. So something should be there. So you try to identify. Okay, that should be there. It should be usually associated with some or the other thing and associated fever also you should be asking for with respect to jaundice. Even it can be simple viral hepatitis on top of a chronic illness. Okay, okay,
Yes,
proceed.
ma'am.
Okay.
The vomiting of blood was noted since the last 2 days. It was sudden in
Whether there is
onset.
associated anorexia, nausea, and vomiting, or
Yes,
simply it
ma'am.
is vomiting.
There is anorexia.
That you should be more specific because if it is associated with jaundice, then it may be even because of the jaundice itself, or it is for some other reason like GI bleed, as it is causing the vomiting that you have to differentiate. Okay,
Oh,
okay,
it was
proceed.
bright. It was bright red in color, about 20 ml in quantity,
It
and it
is.
was not projectile.
It is.
20 ml in quantity, bright red in color, and non-projectile.
Okay. Why it is bright red, and how do you explain that?
Ma'am, I'm guessing it is from an upper GI bleed, and that's why it is bright red in color.
Usually, okay, while if the bleed is from upper GI and it is of minimal quantity, it will be mixed with the acid. So
Yes,
the
ma'am.
color will be little brown or maroon. So we should be little more careful whether it is a Mallory yeast like because of the stretch and bleed, or it is a non that is variceal bleed which is effortless and profuse. In that case, the transit time is very low and you can have a bright red in color. So you should be little more cautious, or whether it is chemoptysis.
Okay,
Because
ma'am.
usually you should be little careful in differentiating between hematemesis and chemoptysis. And if it is bright red, then it is whether it is from the upper GI, even it can be from the oral cavity. Because if it should be from the GI, it will be little altered. Otherwise, the reason or the cause for the bleed is something like variceal bleed, where it is effortless, profuse because of the variceal rupture, and it will be voluminous in that case. So minimal 20 ml or minimal bleeding and occasional bleeding need not be bright in color. You should be more cautious in identifying from where it comes, whether it is a UGI or it is even from the oral cavities or the nasopharyngeal or laryngopharyngeal area. Okay. But you
Okay,
have
ma'am.
to be little more careful. But UGI bleed will be maroon or dark brown in color because of the acid content and the alkali nature associated with the GI secretions. Okay, proceed with.
The vomit did not contain any food particles and it was not associated with abdominal pain.
Okay.
There were four such episodes. They were not followed by dizziness or loss of consciousness.
Okay.
It is also associated with melena.
Okay. Since when you told it is vomiting of
Last
blood
two
since
days.
2 days? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So since then the patient is having melena.
Yes, ma'am.
Define how will you identify it as a GI bleed or it is
Ma'am, if it is in
upper
melena, is
GI by bleed
basically
which is causing melena?
if it is black tarry stools and if the
Yeah.
quantity of blood
Then
lost is
other
greater than
characters of
60
a
ml.
typical. Okay. Again, the consistency, frequency, and the smell of the feces may be different. Okay. With all these things, you have to come to a conclusion it is a melena. So, otherwise, whether it is a simple drug intake that is causing the discoloration of the stool or the feces. Again, you have to clarify. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What are all the conditions that can have black tarry stools or black color stool?
Ma'am, if we consider drug intake, it can be due to iron or bismuth therapy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay,
If
that
we consider,
and simple food also like beetroot and other things can cause discoloration of the feces. And so frequency, consistency, and sticking on to the pan and smelly. Those are all the typical characters of melena because it is a bleed and it is so frequency will be little more and it will be sticking on to the pan also. And when water is poured on that, there may be little red coloration also because of the bleed. Okay, proceed.
there is no history of bleed per rectum or no history of heartburn and bloating.
Okay.
The
Usually
patient,
only dyspepsia, non-ulcer dyspepsia or ulcer dyspepsia may be associated in these type of situations. That is jaundice, abdominal distension and other things. Okay. Rather than bloating, belching and other things, there may be even non-ulcer dyspepsia or dyspepsia. Okay. Proceed with.
the patient also complains of increased sleepiness during the day and sleeplessness at night since the last 2 days.
Okay.
There is history of weight loss and loss of appetite. There is history of easy fatigability, weakness and tiredness.
Since how long? It is say you are telling there is loss of weight and loss of appetite over how many months?
Ma'am, this is since the last 3 months.
Okay. Onset of the symptom, you have started with 4 months duration of abdominal distension. Okay. And jaundice only for the past 7 days. So
Yes, ma'am.
jaundice or inadequate intake is not the reason for the loss of weight. It is a chronic illness that we should be thinking over. Okay. Then proceed with.
There is no history of confusion or altered sensorium. There is no history of dysphagia, indigestion, constipation, or diarrhea. There is no
Okay.
history of fever and no history of dysuria or oliguria.
Okay. Okay. So when you are telling, you try to conclude all the GI problem like dyspepsia in relation to the digestion first and in relation to the urinary output. Then you come to the causative reasons like fever or complications like abdominal pain, which may be associated with the final diagnosis or the disease process. So one by one, you can bring it and complete. Okay. Okay, you have completed.
History of presenting illness.
Okay.
Can I start with past history, ma'am?
Yeah, complete the history and then you try to summarize and what is the diagnosis, probable system involved, and whether it is associated with complications or it is simply the onset of the disease. Like that, we can conclude whatever is possible. Okay, okay. At least
Past
80 to
history.
90%, we should be able to come to a conclusion of diagnosis. Okay, go for
Past
the past
history.
history. Okay.
He had an episode of jaundice 1 year back for which he took native treatment.
Okay, then
The-
at that place, you have to conclude why jaundice has occurred and what is the reason. Whether it is a metabolic or it is an infective or some other thing, you have to conclude because it may be significantly associated with this episode also. It is more of a recurrent jaundice. So why the patient should have recurrent jaundice? In that way, you have to think and you have to conclude why the patient developed jaundice. What is the etiology? Which had occurred in the past, okay, that may be 1 year back.
yes,
So
ma'am.
you should be asking for, so he underwent a native medication. What was the type of during the previous episode? How about the color of the stool? How about the color of the urine and skin associated skin itching? All those things associated fever, everything to conclude whether it is a viral hepatitis or it is an alcoholic hepatitis or some other thing. So you have to conclude so that whether it is related to this event or it is some other thing, and transiently it had come like viral A and viral hepatitis E can spontaneously resolve. So you should be
Yes,
eliciting the history completely and conclude what is the probable reason for the jaundice which had occurred 1 year before. Okay, which will be helping in the diagnosis which we are making this time. Okay, okay,
yes, ma'am.
okay.
There's no history of tuberculosis, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, asthma, heart disease, or seizures. He's currently not on any
Okay,
medication. There's
okay.
no history, ma'am.
Yes, yes, proceed.
There's
Proceed.
no history of blood transfusion or tattooing, no history of recent travel, and no history of previous abdominal surgeries.
Okay.
Family history, there are no similar complaints in the
Always
family.
you should be trying to think of, okay, you are saying no. If it is yes, then how it is related to the present illness, or how it is related to the patient, and how it is related to the pathology of the disease. We are going on saying there is no. Okay.
Ma'am,
For
if there
our
was
purpose
history
of,
of
okay, for the purpose of our learning, we should be putting yes, yes, he is a diabetic. What way it is related? It may not be related. It is a coincidental or whatever it may be. What is the role of hypertension? For hypertension, they might have started on methyl dopa, which may be a cause for jaundice. So you try to put always yes and think over, so that you get many reasons, and you get more points, and remembrance is easy, and it will be of use for the long run. So always whenever you are preparing, you put yes in all the places of no, and try to find out the answer. It is a method of learning. That's all. Okay, proceed.
family history, no similar complaints in the family.
So if there is a family history of jaundice, then what do you think? Significant family history of the jaundice,
Ma'am, if
not
there's an acute
simultaneously.
episode,
It need not be a simultaneous one. It may be something or some time back or whatever it may be, or it may be the cause for the death of a family member. So what you just think, what are all the causes if there is a family history of jaundice?
ma'am, there can be Wilson's, hemochromatosis, alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency.
Be slow, be slow. Everyone should understand what you told.
Wilson's.
Wilson. So common thing is always even hepatitis B also. If the patient is having and they are sharing common toilets, and it is again sexually transmitted. So again, it may be even there with his wife. So you have to think even that. Okay, hepatitis. Okay, like B, C, D, it can be transmitted sexually, and even among family members, hepatitis B can be easily transmitted. So toilet care is a must in those patients. Okay, okay, proceed. And all the metabolic disorders which can run in families. Okay, so you should be thinking in terms of his siblings also. So what is the order of the birth, and how many siblings he has, any untoward incidents that is like jaundice or some metabolic diseases in his brother or sister, everything you should be correlating. Okay, and again coming to his family, wife and his children, the other way around it can be again. Okay, proceed.
Personal history, he is an auto driver by profession. He takes a mixed diet, but since the last 1 week, he is noticing decrease in appetite. His
Okay.
sleep is disturbed at night and increased sleepiness during the day. His bowel and bladder habits are normal. He is a non-smoker, but he consumes 180 ml of whiskey daily since the last 20 years.
So you have to convert that into grams of alcohol per day, and you should be proving that his consumption is towards the cause for cirrhosis. So you have to convert the nature of the alcohol, what type of alcohol, and how many grams per day, whether he is a regular intake, he is consuming regularly daily, or it is a weekly or whatever it may be. So whether he has developed dependence, he is dependent to alcoholism, substance abuse, like whether he is in that state or he is not. So everything you have to conclude. So you have to convert mainly into the grams. So 80 grams per day for many years will lead on to cirrhosis. Below 40 grams per day, it may not lead on to cirrhosis. And the dose is very minimal if the patient is a female. So for those thing purpose, you have to calculate what is the nature of the drink that is taking, alcohol in grams
Okay, ma'am.
for exam purpose and other thing. It is a common question. How many grams per day he is consuming? That calculation you should be doing it for ethanol related liver disease.
Okay, ma'am.
Proceed.
There is no history of IV drug abuse. He's married and
Okay.
monogamous with his wife.
Okay. How many kids he has? Whether it is a consanguineous marriage, and how many siblings are there? Any untoward incidents in the family also you should be completing. It may be helping or may not be helping. That is different. When we are eliciting the history, we should be taking it as a whole. So always pertaining to the patient, whether he is married to a related person, that is consanguinity, degree of consanguinity, and what about his siblings and the disease in the siblings, and then how many kids he has and any untoward incidents in his children or whatever it may be. Okay, proceed.
Summary, ma'am.
Proceed.
A 55-year-old male
Hello?
with. Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello? Ma'am, we
Hello?
can hear you.
Hello? Okay, proceed. Other histories
A
about,
50,
yeah. What about the treatment history?
he's
So
not
you
he's
have
not
told
on any
about a
medication
past
currently,
history,
ma'am.
and about again his sexual history, whether there is any exposure. He denies, they may not be accepting, denies extramarital affair or whatever it may be, that you should be telling. And then again treatment history, because again he had jaundice 1 year back and symptomatic for the past 4 months, whether he has been started on any medications since 4 months. That history you should be giving. Okay, treatment no history or nothing, or and again vaccination history. Okay, he is an auto driver. Okay, no issues. If he is a lab personnel or some other healthcare provider, they might have taken hepatitis vaccine and all. So everything, even adolescent and adult immunization has a role. So you have to inquire about any history of immunization and treatment history also. So that completes. Retrospectively, we need not go and analyze. So everything we can gather, and then if it is of use, then you can use it. Otherwise, we can leave it. Okay, no issues. Okay.
A 55-year-old male with significant alcohol consumption, history since 20 years, and past history of jaundice that was treated with native medicines, presence with abdominal distension since 4 months, pedal edema since 3 months,
So you can
jaundice since.
narrate symptomatic since 4 months in the form of uniformly distended abdomen associated with pedal edema, jaundice, and you can summarize in the medical terminologies, because you have taken the whole history from the patient, which can be in anything. Once you are summarizing, you can put all the medical with the upper features of UGI bleed, like that. You can summarize in our all the medical terminologies and conclude the probable system involved with the etiology and other things. Okay. You again, you need not say abdominal distension. It is swelling of the abdomen, or it is a, okay. You just say conclude.
Jaundice since the last 7 days and hematemesis with melena since the last 2 days. He also gives a history of altered sleep patterns.
Okay.
Ma'am, considering all this, I think his condition involves the hepatobiliary system.
Okay.
And
Since there is jaundice, then it is a hepatobiliary system. Okay.
and since there's abdominal distension, which will most probably be due to ascites, we can call it a decompensated chronic liver disease
Okay.
due to portal hypertension and because of the altered sleep
Not, it is
pattern.
not due to portal hypertension. It is hepatobiliary pathology, maybe probably cirrhosis with portal hypertension. Not it is due to. It is with portal hypertension, because there is UGI bleed. So it is with portal hypertension. Yeah, say.
And because of the altered sleep pattern, it's hepatic encephalopathy.
Impending hepato, and because you have not examined, only there is reversal of a sleep pattern, not any other thing like involuntary movements or anything. So maybe probably going in for hepatic encephalopathy. Okay.
And all this was probably due to chronic alcohol consumption because
It's
there was no.
ethanol related, etiology being ethanol related, that way
Yes,
you
ma'am.
conclude. And okay. So
Uh,
it is a liver disease with features of a few signs and symptoms of portal hypertension, impending hepatic encephalopathy, probably ethanol related. Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Proceed with the examination. Okay.
General examination. He was awake, irritable, disoriented to time, but oriented to place and person.
So whether he is restless or comfortable in lying down, then on top of that, how he behaves, whether there is any alteration in the behavior. Okay, then what about the memory? Everything can be lost. What about the intellectual capacity, whether it has reduced? So everything you should be eliciting. Okay.
He
Okay.
was ill
So,
built and malnourished.
okay, in the form of what? Where and all? There is loss of muscle mass. You are telling it is ill nourished and
Ill built and malnourished.
okay, why you are saying that way? What are all the features that are to be there to say he is ill nourished and ill built?
Loss of muscle mass, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Which indicates
Cachexia.
which indicates there is protein deficiency. Okay, either it may be because of inadequate intake or loss, whatever it may be. That is different for any deficiencies. Why he should be having emaciation and other things? It is because of the protein deficiency. Okay, inadequate proteins. Okay.
His height was 170
Usually
centimeters.
these type of people, they have again abdominal distension. So the weight may be near normal. If you calculate BMI in this type of patients, it may not show he is undernourished or ill nourished, whatever it may be, because there is salt and water being retained, which will be adding on to his weight. So in this situation, BMI may not be of use. So either mid-arm circumference or loss of temporal muscle wastings, buccal part of fat may be lost, and all the subcutaneous fat being less. These should be the features to say that he is emaciated or ill-built or ill-nourished. Okay. And
Yes,
again, the
ma'am.
mid-arm circumference may be less. So all this indicates. But because there is ascites and pedal edema and swelling of the legs, he may not be having a reduced BMI towards your nourishment or undernourished or whatever it may be. Okay, okay. For other patients, you should be calculating BMI, other system involvement. But in this, there is volume overload. It may be the other way around to calculate his nutritional status or BMI status or waist hip ratio and other things. You should be correlating and concluding that he is ill nourished and ill built. Okay, okay. So
Okay,
you should
ma'am.
be explaining there is a muscle mass being reduced or loss of muscle mass in the upper arms, biceps and other things in the leg, quadriceps and other thing. It is wasted and it is thin muscle, and that should be the way of explaining and say. And there is abdominal distension, poverty. Below is the terminology they say for the cirrhotic patients. Okay, okay, proceed with.
There is
So
icterus, pallor.
examination, we should be telling that way. There is loss of this type of the loss, and there is pedal edema and swelling. Okay, okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Proceed.
There is icterus, pallor, edema, which is a pitting
Then
type until the
based
knees.
on the just wait because your the patient is icteric. Then
Yes,
which are
ma'am.
all the sites you will look for, and based on the appearance of the discoloration, what is the type of jaundice? That also you can conclude. Otherwise, only the investigation is going to reveal whether it is a hepatocellular jaundice, obstructive jaundice, or a hemolytic jaundice. So, based on the examination, you should be able to conclude what type of jaundice he is having. What is the color of the yellowness in his eyes to conclude whether it is obstructive, hepatocellular, or hemolytic. So, which
Okay,
are all
ma'am.
the common sites where you will look for icterus? So, examination you should be doing how you will be finding out or making out the icterus. So, make the patient stand or sit in a well lighted place. So, there should be adequate light in the atmosphere or in the room. Then, where and all you will look for jaundice.
Upper sclera, mucous membranes, like the palm crease.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Okay, soft palate, and upper surface of the tongue and all you have to see. And based on the color, if it is greenish yellow, dark greenish yellow, then what is the inference? So in
Obstructive.
pediatrics, it is from the head to foot. You can assess what is the rough estimate of bilirubin, if it is in the palms and soles and other things. But in the adult, based on the coloration of the yellowness, if it is a lemon yellow, then what is the type of jaundice?
Hemolytic jaundice, ma'am.
Yeah. So it will be very light and it is more of a lemon yellow. And if it is a greenish yellow, then it is because of the obstruction and it is more of a conjugated bilirubin. So that is the reason for greenish and yellow. Okay. Okay. Proceed with. So based on that also you can reasonably conclude what type of jaundice probably he has. Okay. Then proceed.
There's pallor also, ma'am.
Okay. What are all the causes of pallor in this patient? Probable reason for pallor in this patient.
Due to the blood loss, ma'am. Hematemesis.
So within 2 days, only 2 days he is having blood loss. Then if it is 2 days blood loss, it is an acute one. Then what are all the associated features that will be there? Pallor will not develop over 2 days. If at all, if it is there, then it is a massive loss to have a paleness in within 2 days. So you told the history of GI bleed is only for 2 days, and in the past history, nothing is there except jaundice. So if the past history is revealing that there is UGI bleed now and then it can be because of the varicose bleed or whatever it may be. The GI loss is on a chronic basis producing pallor. So within 2 days, if the reason is the pallor is because of the loss, then it should be a massive loss. The patient should be having giddiness, palpitations, and other thing too. As a complication, he will develop and he may be in need of blood transfusions. So it is not an acute loss for this patient, this scenario. So it should be a chronic one because there is less appetite, there is loss of weight and everything. So it is a chronic illness. The absorption may be less, intake may be less, and he may not be noticed the melena in the previous duration, the 4 months. So those are all the things that can cause pallor. It is a chronic thing. So all
Okay, ma'am.
multiple components may be there to produce pallor. It need not be an acute one. Okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Proceed with. Okay.
There's pitting type of edema until the knees.
Okay.
There is no cyanosis, no clubbing, no lymphadenopathy.
There is no cyanosis, no clubbing. Okay. If there is clubbing, then what is the cause in this background?
Some arteriovenous shunt, ma'am.
It is the basic pathology for clubbing. That is not asked for you. What are all the probable cause with this scenario if there is a clubbing?
Malabsorption,
Okay, malabsorption, then
inflammatory bowel disease,
very good ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, that can okay,
then chronic liver disease.
from primary biliary cirrhosis that has typical feature of clubbing. Okay, so
Okay,
those are all the GI causes for clubbing. Long way chronic liver cell failure at the end stage they can have clubbing. Okay.
there are some signs of liver failure which are present, like parotid swelling bilaterally, Palmer
Okay. What are
erythema,
all the causes for bilateral parotid swelling? Other causes.
mumps,
Mumps. Okay.
Sjogren syndrome,
Okay. Very good.
then some stone in the parotid gland, ma'am,
Okay.
sialadenitis or silolith.
Okay. Parotid abscess or a local pathology of the parotid gland, parotid tumors. Okay. Then
Yes, ma'am.
even sarcoid you can have. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Then there is Palmer erythema,
Okay.
spider nevi,
Okay.
gynecomastia,
Where
and
you will look
flapping
for
tremor.
spider nevi?
In the region of the superior vena cava, ma'am, trunk, arms, face.
SVT, SVC territory. Okay. How will you confirm it is only spider nevi and not other thing? Petechiae or whatever it may be. Or
Ma'am, when we press it, I think it will blanch.
center, okay, center of the spider nevi is pressed where it will disappear. The fanning out and other tributaries will be obliterated. Once you release, it will again reappear. So blanching and again coming back after releasing the pressure gives rise to spider nevi. How many should be there to what are all the other conditions where you can have spider
It's seen in
nevi
pregnancy,
and
ma'am.
which how many is significant?
It's seen in pregnancy
Yes.
and above 5 is significant.
Okay. 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 Proceed.
There's
So
gynecomastia and flapping
again in
tumor.
dark individuals, right? Again in our setup, Indians or South Indians, because the complexion is black, it may not be obvious. Again, make him to a well lit place and see even over the back and other areas. Okay. Okay.
The whitest, he's afebrile. Temperature was noted orally. It was
And again,
98.8 degrees.
lymphadenopathy, you have to be more specific with respect to virtuous node. Okay. In
Yes,
general
ma'am.
examination, though there is no generalized lymphadenopathy, again specifically you have to say there is no left supraclavicular nodes or virtuous node is not palpable. So you are ruling out malignancy or you have looked into that aspect also. Okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Vitals, he was afebrile, 98.8 degree Fahrenheit. Pulse
Okay.
was 92 per minute.
Okay.
Regular rhythm, normal character and volume. There were no radio-radial or radiofemoral delay. All peripheral pulses are palpable, equal bilaterally.
And condition of the vessel wall you have to say because the age is beyond 50 or 55. He is you told he is 55. So
Yes,
all the
ma'am.
components in the pulse should come. Usually in this situation, hyperdynamic uh, that is hyperkinetic pulse is expected. So you have to make it sure whether it is hypokinetic because of the bleed, UGI bleed, or it is hyperkinetic, or there is tachycardia or bradycardia, because bradycardia may be associated with obstructive jaundice, tachycardia with respect to loss of blood volume and GI bleed. So you have to differentiate and try to find out. So calculate for the 1 minute pulse rate and find out. And again, what about the BP?
BP is 164, ma'am. Low
So
BP.
what is the pulse pressure? Why it is very why the diastolic BP is low? Whether it is because of the hyperkinetic circulation which is expected in cirrhotic patient because of the peripheral arterial vasodilatation. So also look for the collapsing nature. Pseudo collapsing may be there. So always in cirrhotic patient you should be looking carefully and calculate the pulse pressure also and say whether it is of normal volume or hypokinetic because of the bleed which is of short nature or it is a well compensated one having hyperkinetic circulation. Okay, proceed with. Okay.
The respiratory rate is 17 per minute and it is thoraco-abdominal.
Okay. Okay.
The JVP is not elevated.
So what is the role of GAVP in abdominal conditions? Why
To
you should
rule out
be
constrictive pericarditis, ma'am.
okay and in
Or
other
else
mm,
right heart failure.
okay, right heart, because it may be that is abdominal distension is a component of right heart failure. So it need not be a GI pathology. It can be even a heart disease or a core respiratory condition. It can be a carpulmonale with
Yes, ma'am.
stress induced GI bleed. So you have to think in terms of that also. So you have to be more cautious with JVP. Simple volume overload again can give rise to engaged JVP or elevated JVP. So and whether it is pulsatile or not. The JVP need not be elevated to have a pulsation. So not even among the normal individuals you can visualize the JVP that is jugular venous pulsation. Elevated is in pathological condition, but pulsations can be seen among normal individuals. So whether it is pulsatile or not, that also you should be telling because in Burchiari there may be non-pulsatile JVP. So you have to specifically mention and see for the JVP pulsations. Whether it is elevated or not, then it is the second component. So in JVP, you have to look into both the ways. Okay, proceed.
Oral cavity examination. The lips appear normal with no
So
evidence of
peripheries
cracks.
it is over and all the liver cell failures you have told. Only few
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have told. You have told parotid. Then you have to narrate all the things like distribution of the hair, gynecomastia, testicular atrophies and testicular sensations because simple testicular tumor. Okay, hard testicles. It may be the reason for ascites following metastasis. So always palpate the testicles, then asterixis, whether it is there, all the things towards the hepatocellular failure, you should be going on narrating, then it is easy for any time to write or to document. Okay, fed to food, everything you should complete for liver cell failure. You told few things and then left it, but you should be completing it. Okay. Whether
Yes,
any
ma'am.
depressant contracture is there, so everything you have to say. Okay. Okay, proceed.
The lips appear normal with no evidence of crack, fissures, or scars.
To that
Teeth have
extent, we need
multiple
not
caries.
use. Okay, okay, okay,
The tongue is normal and there are no ulcers or patches on the palate or mucosa.
okay.
Inspection of
Mainly, you have to look in for deficiencies, whether glossitis is there, anglostomatitis is there, okay, then ulcers and other things. Again, signs of vitamin deficiencies, both water soluble and fat soluble. So, even you have to look for vitamin A deficiencies, Vitalspar or whatever it may be, or both fat soluble and water soluble vitamin deficiencies. Signs and symptoms you have to look for. Okay, then,
inspection of the abdomen. Abdomen is uniformly distended and flanks are full.
okay,
Umbilicus appears to be displaced downwards and has a horizontal slit.
horizontal
Or
slit or it is everted.
horizontal slit, ma'am.
Okay, horizontal slit indicates the ascites is not of a massive. If it is a massive, then it should be averted or normal. Initial accumulation of that is the fluid is on transverse slit. If it is little massive, the transverse slit become oval or whatever it may be, or the umbilicus starts everting. Okay, no issues. It is transversely slit and slightly pushed down. Okay, towards the pubis, symphysis pubis. Okay. Okay.
All abdominal quadrants move equally with respiration. Skin
Okay.
appears skin appears shiny with no striae or scratches. No
So
discoloration of
whether
skin
then
is
in
seen.
that case it is stretched. Why it should be shiny? Then the skin is stretched. Even through that you can see the engorgement of the veins or the greenish nature of the veins. It need not be a distension, but you should be very careful in committing in that case. If the skin is shiny, then the reason for shininess is because of the stretched nature. So usually once it is shiny, then you have to say it is stretched and shiny. It indicates that the distension is little gross and the accumulation of fluid is more moderate to massive to give the skin as shiny skin. Okay, okay, proceed with.
Engorged veins are present over the abdomen. There's
Where? So
uh,
site of abdominal vein being prominent is of more diagnostic value. So where exactly? Because we all are listening to you. So you should be narrating where exactly it is over the back or it is over the flank or it is near the umbilicus.
anterior surface, ma'am, in the center of the abdomen.
Oh, that you have to be careful in the center of the abdomen, not that way. So we are imagining where it should be. So you should be saying where it is around the. If it is around the umbilicus, then it should be caput medusae, or we have to examine that on with auscultation and other thing. So where the segment exactly is, it is just to the right or to the left of the umbilicus, above the navel or below the navel. That way you should be explaining the site of venous distension. Okay, proceed.
No visible pulsations or peristalsis. No scars
Okay.
or sinuses.
Okay. And whether
Hernial
there is
orifice.
any hernial orifices, you should be looking into even by doing cough impulse. So divarication of recti, which shows the chronicity of the disease, everything, or the obesity, whatever it may be. So you should be looking into any hernias over the epigastrium or incisional hernia or the femoral or inguinal hernia or simple umbilical hernia. So hernial orifices, especially with respect to male inguinal hernia, you have to do cough impulse and also see. Okay, okay. And
Her- her-
external genitalia you should be telling. Okay,
Hernial orifices appear normal. External genitalia appears normal.
okay, okay,
Palpation. On
okay.
superficial palpation, the
Again,
abdomen
you
is
have to look at the back. You have told in the front. You told flanks are full, and it is distended, stretched, and shiny. Okay, and a few dilated veins are seen that you told. So you have to say examination over the back whether there is any presacral edema which may be there, and again whether the renal angle is full and whether any dilatation of the veins at the back. These are all the important things looking at the back. You should not miss it. So you have to examine at the back and look for the three things: presacral edema, then renal angle being full, and again the dilatation of the veins may be there. Okay. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, can I continue with palpation now?
Yeah. No. Yes. Proceed with palpation.
Palpation and superficial palpation. The abdomen is not warm or tender. There is no abdominal rigidity or guarding.
Okay.
Abdominal girth is 105 centimeters.
At
The
the level
spine,
of
ma'am,
at the level of
umbilicus.
now you have to specifically shape, because again here the umbilicus is little shifted down. So at the level of umbilicus, you are supposed to measure the girth. So you, at the level of umbilicus, the girth is this much you should be telling. Okay. Okay.
The spino-umbilical distance is 20 centimeters on both sides. The
Equal on both sides. Okay.
xipho-umbilical distance is 24 centimeter
Yes.
and umbilicus to pubis distance is 19 centimeter, suggesting that the displacement of
Okay.
umbilicus is downwards.
Okay. Okay.
The direction of flow
Okay.
of blood in engorged veins is away from the umbilicus, both above and below.
It is away from
Away
the
from the umbilicus.
umbilicus in both the side. Okay. Okay.
On deep palpation, there was no palpable mass.
Okay. On deep palpation, you could not find out hepatomegaly or splenomegaly or any other mass. That way
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
say. Okay, I could not palpate liver or spleen or any other mass. Okay.
On percussion of liver, the
Okay.
upper border
Proceed.
of the upper border of
Okay.
the upper border of liver dullness is percussed at the right fifth intercostal space along the mid clavicular line, and lower border is not palpable.
The percussion, that is the dullness doesn't or continues with the over the abdomen, you can say. Okay, it's the liver dullness starts at the fifth
Fifth
space in the
intercostal space.
along the mid line. Okay. Okay.
Percussion of
Okay.
spleen by Castell's and Nixon's method, ma'am.
Okay.
In Castell's method, the dullness is observed in the ninth intercostal space along the anterior axillary line.
Okay.
In Nixon's method, the spleen extends 10 centimeter above the left costal margin.
Okay. Okay.
There is shifting dullness
Okay.
present. The fluid thrill is not appreciated.
So shifting dullness is there, but there is no
Fluid thrill.
fluid thrill, which indicates that it is not a tense ascites.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you should be doubly cautious because the skin is stretched and shiny, but there is no fluid thrill. So you have to be very much careful in committing that. Okay. Okay. So they will cross verify when there is a case and you are in front of the examiner. That is the reason that you should be going through. Okay.
On auscultation, the bowel sounds
Okay,
are
proceed.
present. There is no venous hum or bruit.
What is the frequency of the bowel sound that you have heard?
3 times in 1 minute, ma'am.
Only 3 times over a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the normal bowel frequency?
Once every 15 seconds.
Okay, just proceed. Okay.
There is no venous hum or bruit. Examination of other
So you
systems.
should be telling auscultation over the liver. There is no rub. Okay. Then there is no bruit.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Examination of other systems. CNS, he is awake and irritable.
Yes,
Disoriented.
examination of the other system.
CNS, he is awake and irritable. Disoriented to time but oriented to place and person. The plantar reflex is flexor. and no focal neurological
Okay.
deficit present. Flapping tremors are present. No other involuntary movement is observed.
Okay, since you are telling plantar is flexor, then you have to say about the tone of the muscle also. So, in which stage of hepatic encephalopathy he is? He is
Stage 2,
irritable,
ma'am.
and whether you have supposed to do the constructional apraxia and other tests. And
Yes, ma'am.
what about whether there is any decline in the intellectual thing? And about the memory to do, and trail test can be done. These things to be done as a routine, and what is the observation that you have to say? Okay, with respect to the patient, you have to complete all those tests. I didn't do, you can't say. So trails test you can perform. Okay, that way you say all the components. Okay. Mm.
Respiratory system, normal vesicular
And
breath.
the stage of coma. Okay. Proceed,
Normal,
proceed. Other system examination. Okay.
normal vesicular
Mm.
breath sounds heard bilaterally, no added sounds. CVS, the apical impulse is felt at the left fourth.
What is expected in respiratory? Wait. What is the abnormality that you expect in respiratory system with respect to your abdominal diagnosis?
Ma'am, the lungs can be pushed upwards. The diaphragm can be pushed upwards
Why? Why it should be pushed upwards?
because of the.
There is cirrhosis. The liver is shrunken. Then it should be the liver dullness even maybe in the lower spaces like sixth or seventh. It need not be in the fifth if there is a marked cirrhosis. Okay, fluid it can, if it is a massive, you told there is no fluid till, then it is not a tense ascites to have a abdominal push or diaphragmatic push also. Okay, apart from that, okay, it can be pushed up. Okay, that is one. Okay, then
Ma'am,
there may be right sided pleural effusion.
yes, ma'am.
Hepatothorax, hydrothorax you can have. In that case, the air entry may be absent or diminished. Or again, there may be basal atelectasis because of the shift of the diaphragm also. So you have to specifically say how about the air entry on both the bases of the lung. That is
Yes,
more
ma'am.
significant to say whether the fluid has gone into the pleural cavity, which is quite common and normal also. So air entry is more important rather than the nature of the breath sounds. Unless there is an air entry, how will you define it as a bronchial breathing or a vesicular breathing or whatever may be the type of breathing? Okay. Again, then it is a volume overload state. Then when any adventitious sounds like wheeze or crepitations may be there because of the volume overload. So you have to say that there are no absent R entry and no evidence of atelectasis and there is no crepitations. Okay, okay,
In CVS
okay. But
examination,
that is
the
expected with respect to respiratory. Then with respect to cardiovascular system,
apical impulse was felt at the left fourth intercostal space, ma'am, in the mid clavicular line. S1 and S2 was heard, no
left
murmurs.
fourth. Why it is in the left fourth intercostal space? Why? What is it normal?
No,
What do
ma'am.
you want to say? Hmm. It is
Again.
shifted. So most of the time it will not be, but be cautious in saying that. And okay, it is actually you have done at home side. It is not the bedside, but most of the time that variation may not need not be there. Okay, okay. Be
Okay.
cautious in committing while you are given a case. Okay. Mm.
Provisional diagnosis. My
What about the heart sounds? Everything
eh,
you have to say whether there is any tachycardia, and again there may be even fluid collection on the left side if the ascites is more, or part and parcel of generalized anasarca. The cause may be something different. In that case, again you can have S3 or gallop rhythm or the heart being dilated. If and again in even in chronic alcoholism, you can have dilated cardiomyopathy. So you have to look for, because the patient is ill nourished and chest will be intercostal muscle wasting even may be there, so it will be prominent. So whether he has any hyperkinetic circulation, whether the apical impulse is shifted down and out as a component of dilated cardiomyopathy, so whether the patient is in failure, all those things you should be telling. Okay,
Okay,
in
ma'am.
cardiovascular system, and there may be associated pulmonary hypertension also. So you have to say which is the site of apical impulse and whether there is any murmur or even simple chronic anemia can lead on to innocent murmur or hemic murmur or you can have a short systolic everything you have to say, and the patient is not in failure and there is no S3 gallop or whatever the thing you have to say. Okay.
The
Okay.
diagnosis for this patient is decompensated liver disease, probably cirrhosis of liver, with features of portal hypertension and hepatic encephalopathy grade 2 due to chronic ethanol consumption.
Okay, the etiology being ethanol related. Okay, you told it is a cirrhosis of liver. What is the evidence for cirrhosis of liver in your case, starting from the history or from the examination? Why do you say it is a cirrhosis liver?
Ma'am, usually cirrhosis is a histological finding, but
Okay.
since there's jaundice.
No, what is the clinical? This is a histological finding that is different. Cirrhosis, then there should be shrunken liver. The liver span should be less. That is one evidence which you are not able to, because there is shifting dullness. You should have done where the upper limit is, then make the fluid shift and try to find out whether you are able to look into the dullness of the lower border of the river. You try once and try to see whether there is any evidence for shrunken liver in the clinical examination. Okay, then so there is no evidence for enlargement also. If it is an alcoholic hepatitis where you can have jaundice, fever, and other things. So in that case, you may be having hepatic enlargement, or if the cirrhosis, chronic cirrhosis going in for hepatocellular carcinoma, in that case again you can have a hepatomegaly. So there is no evidence for hepatomegaly enlargement. There is no evidence. So, but you have to be carefully looking for the evidence of shrunken liver clinically. Then you can correlate with the investigations in the form of ultrasound, which is going to give. That is different. So, as far as the discussion is concerned, evidence for cirrhosis at this stage it is less significant because you are not able to elicit enlargement or shrunken liver clinically. Okay. Okay.
Ma'am.
Then liver evidence for portal hypertension.
Yes, ma'am. The dilated veins, the
You just
caput
start
megaphys.
from the history. What? There is evidence of UGI bleed. Okay? Then,
Yes, ma'am.
which is equivalent to the presence of varices. Okay? For that reason, I am saying evidence for portal hypertension means you bring it everything from the history and then the clinical features and then the investigations. Okay? Okay. So it is the UGI bleed and the dilated veins and the presence of ascites. All these leads to the diagnosis of portal hypertension as a complication of cirrhosis. Okay. Okay. Then
And there is hepatic
evidence for
encephalopathy.
encephalopathy. Okay.
The asterixis, the flapping tremors are seen, and the sleep
Okay.
patterns are abnormal.
So you should have told about any smell in his breath. Okay. During examination, what and all you have left, you have to recatch. So there
Yes,
may
ma'am.
be.
Peter
What is the
hepaticus.
order that is specific in encephalopathy?
Peter hepaticus.
Oh, yeah. So that should be looked into, and you have to say specifically because the patient is in hepatic encephalopathy. So whatever is more important towards the final diagnosis, that finding should be looked into or specifically said whether it is present or not in the examination. Oh, there is no Peter hepaticus is more important. Okay. Then any precipitating factor that has led on to hepatic encephalopathy? What are all the common precipitating factors with respect to hepatic encephalopathy?
High onset fever or some infection, ma'am.
Okay, infection. Okay, infection in the form of spontaneous bacterial peritonitis or infection anywhere. Okay, then
if there is added hepatitis A or E.
Okay, that is a rare thing and comes the last. Okay, infection in the form of spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. Then high protein intake, high protein diet can again precipitate encephalopathy. Commonest thing is constipation. So constipation and then excessive use of diuretic again that can precipitate. This is a common question and you have to get prepared. Okay, common
Yes, ma'am.
precipitating factor. The patient is already in a decompensated stage. Which factor is or which finding is there for decompensation?
Portal hypertension.
It is
Ascites.
a complication. It is a complication of cirrhosis or it is a sequence. It is a sequential thing. Jaundice itself is a finding for decompensation. Hepatocellular failure. It indicates in a cirrhotic patient why jaundice should develop. Okay. It indicates the hepatocellular system is at fault or failure. So it indicates hepatocellular failure, which is a major point towards decompensation. Okay, because
Okay, ma'am.
portal hypertension you can have ascites. Again, ascites is one of the feature for decompensation. Here in abdomen, the vicious cycle goes on. Cirrhosis, ascites, portal hypertension, everything. Portal hypertension leads on to ascites. But it can be a simple ascites without portal hypertension. There need not be venous distension and other things. So, but evidence for decompensation at present is mainly jaundice, hepatocellular failure, and then patient has gone in for encephalopathy and there is ascites, portal hypertension. Okay. It will be repeated. So if it is a simple ascites, then what is the probable cause? There is no evidence of portal hypertension because many of the patient may not have, need not have venous distension and it may be absent. So simple ascites, what is the probable etiology for a simple ascites? Causes for ascites.
Ma'am, pancreatitis.
Hello, audible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible, ma'am.
Yeah. Causes for ascites.
Pancreatitis.
Okay, you just go from probable cause, like in the form of hypoproteinemia, nephrotic syndrome, CCF, because the patient is right now, the patient is not having any abdominal pain to say pancreatitis is causing. More related to your case, you tell first, and then the other causes you can
Budd-Chiari
narrate
syndrome,
later
ma'am.
on. Okay, here the patient is having simple ascites and jaundice. There is no. Okay, but Chiari again. What about the JVP? Again, you can
JVP will be
say look
raised.
for the hepatojugular reflex. You can perform and see whether it is a non-pulsatile JVP. Okay, to say to a diagnosis towards Budd-Chiari. Okay, again Budd-Chiari you can have. Okay, then where you can have a hepatomegaly, the caudate lobe will be in that is enlarged in Budd-Chiari and it can give rise to hepatomegaly and
Yes,
with a
ma'am.
non-pulsatile JVP. Okay, the common causes simple hypoproteinemia, then CCF, congestive heart failure, constrictive pericarditis, nephrotic
Nephrotic
syndrome.
syndrome.
Okay. Ah, okay, those are all the common things. Congestive heart failure, okay, right heart failure or combined heart failure, both can lead on to the similar situation. Then go for other causes like pancreatitis, peritonitis. It can be either again bacterial or tuberculous peritonitis.
Then any malignancy, ma'am, if it is hepatocellular
Yes, malignant
carcinoma.
ascites. Yeah. Okay. What is Meigs? What is Meigs
Ma'am?
syndrome?
Sweet
What is
syndrome.
Meigs syndrome? It is
Uh,
especially in a female with right-sided ovarian fibroma, right pleural effusion and ascites. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Usually in female with fibroid or fibroma. Okay. Then
Um,
so, okay, how will you investigate towards this patient? What will be positive and what are all the relevant investigations that you will look into
ma-
in each component of your investigations?
First, we will do a liver function test, ma'am, to see
Why?
the.
What about CBC? You always start CBC.
Okay, ma'am.
Since
CBC.
you have told it is pallor is there. So always start with CBC. Or what is expected in CBC in your case, or what component you will look into in your case. CBC,
The
complete blood count. Okay?
the hemoglobin will be low, ma'am. The RBC can be low.
Yes. Hemoglobin and PCV will be low. Okay, may be low because you told there is pallor, definitely it will be low. Okay, hemoglobin and packed cell volume. Okay, then.
Since this is a chronic condition, the ESR can be high, ma'am.
Okay, it's very rare, but okay. Anemia itself can elevate the ESR to some extent. Commonly, there are many myeloproliferative disorder that can present as portal hypertension also. In that case, again, ESR may be elevated. You can say anything in medicine, but you should be having a lateral thinking and bringing all the components. Simple myelofibrosis can produce portal hypertension. That again can give rise to elevated ESR. No issues. Good one.
Then there can be thrombocytopenia, ma'am, because of portal hypertension.
Yeah, because of this splenomegaly and portal hypertension, there may be thrombocytopenia. Then, what
If
about the components of MCH, MCV, MCHC? What changes do you expect in an alcoholic with a pallor? And what about the peripheral smear?
macrocytosis, ma'am.
Why?
Because there will be all the nutrient will be deficient, ma'am. There will be B12 deficiency.
So, even in alcoholism, they will have B12 deficiency and they will have MCV, mean corpuscular volume will be more than 100 femtoliters. That leads on to macrocytic anemia. So, or it may be even dimorphic, iron deficiency plus both. It can be that is the result will be dimorphic anemia. Both microcytic, few may be microcytic hypochromic and few may be macrocytic. Okay. Okay, that should be noted and you should be evaluating for B12 deficiency also in a case of chronic alcoholism, which is quite common, and you have to treat it. Again, it leads on to neurological manifestations. So, you have to look for whether there is any B12 deficiency and what about the thrombocytopenia and anemia. Okay, with respect to complete blood count. Then, come to the other components. Other blood investigations. Liver function test. What are all the components and how it will be helping you in your diagnosis?
Ma'am, ALT, AST, ALP and GGT.
You have to look for, since the patient is jaundice, you should not go for OTPT. You have to start with bilirubin. Okay, since you have told the patient is jaundice. Okay, then you have to look for serum bilirubin. What is the normal serum bilirubin and when you say he is having jaundice? By investigation or with bilirubin?
If the level is above 3 milligram per deciliter, I think we call it jaundice, ma'am.
Okay, it should be more than 3 milligram per deciliter to have a clinically established jaundice. Okay, so it will be more. Then what are all the components that are there in with respect to bilirubin?
Conjugated bilirubin, unconjugated bilirubin.
Yeah. So where do you get elevated conjugated and where do you get elevated unconjugated?
Unconjugated will be elevated if it is hemolytic anemia or prehepatic jaundice.
Okay.
And if it is hepatocellular or obstructive jaundice, in hepatocellular, both conjugated and unconjugated will be elevated, and in obstructive jaundice, only conjugated will be elevated.
Okay. Proceed. So the components of the bilirubin to be noted for. Then come for OTPT. Okay.
We'll do alanine transferase, aspartate aminotransferase, ma'am.
Okay, what about SGOTPT? How it is going to help in your diagnosis and towards the etiology?
If the gamma glutamyl transferase is elevated, we can think
No. OTPT I am asking. AST ALT ratio. In what way it helps you in your?
Since AST greater than ALT will be alcoholic.
More than?
Okay, more than 2.
2
Okay,
is
the
to
ratio
1.
of AST, ALT or OTPT ratio more than 2 indicates the probable etiology may be alcoholic. Okay.
And the
Then
prothrombin time will be decreased because the
you
clotting
told that
factor.
the associated. Okay. Okay. Then coming to the alkaline phosphatase, what do you get? Whether you are getting any clue in that alkaline phosphatase?
It will be increased, ma'am, but since it is formed by bones and other body organs also, so it is not a specific finding. But it will be elevated in this case.
Okay, so in obstruction it may be elevated. Then you think over other, there are no obstruction clinically, then other causes for elevated alkaline phosphate level. Okay, then gamma glutamyl transferase. Okay,
Um,
then prothrombin time and partial thromboplastin time with INR. Okay,
then we'll move to ultrasound abdomen, ma'am.
okay, what are all then if you are suspecting some metabolic cause, you can go for serum copper, ceruloplasmin and other things towards the metabolic etiology. So, investigation serology towards Wilson and other things if the patient is
Yes,
young
ma'am.
and have neurological features and other things. Okay, then ultrasound, what are all the observations you do in ultrasound?
Ma'am, we can exclude hepatocellular carcinoma based on an ultrasound.
First, you assess what are all the normal structures that are there and whether you are able to get a clue towards your diagnosis. Ultrasound, you look for the liver size. What is the size of the liver and what is the architecture of the liver, whether it is altered, whether there is any micronodularity or macronodularity, whether the portal triad is maintained or you have to think over the pathology and decide what are all the pathological abnormality that can happen in cirrhosis, which will be evident in the ultrasound. Ultrasound is nothing but the anatomical evidence. So you have to look for the size of the liver. Whether if there is a cirrhosis, then the liver size should be less than, what is the normal liver span?
10 to 15 centimeters.
Okay, so if it is less, then you can think of shrunken liver.
Cirrhosis.
Okay,
Yes,
then
ma'am.
the architecture, whether it is maintained or not, and whether the nodularity, and on top of that, whether there is a change, transformation into hepatocellular jaundice. Again, the liver size may be becoming normal or enlarged, and there will be multiple deposits. Okay. Whereas in primary hepatocellular carcinoma, it with the liver will be of normal size
Ma'am?
and the changes will be there. Whereas in cirrhosis, all the architectures will be, there will be enlarged liver or normal size liver. Yes. Then coming to the, you can go through the IVC dimensions, hepatic veins, and you can rule out Buchiari also. Okay, whether it is a pre-hepatic or a hepatic or a post-hepatic. By that way, you can conclude what is the reason for ascites or what is the reason for portal hypertension. And coming to the spleen, again, whether it is enlarged or not, you can conclude, and whether there is cavernous malformations. It is again a portosystemic collaterals in and around the spleen can be there. So you have to look into the size of the spleen, whether there are, because of the enlargement, whether there is any splenic infarcts or features of hypersplenism.
Yes,
Then
ma'am.
cavernous angiomas you can look for. Then you can look for the pancreas. Whether there is any head of the pancreas tumor is there or not. Whether there is any bile stone. That may be the reasons for the surgical jaundice. Okay. So obstruction as a etiology for cirrhosis or for anything. So that those things can be ruled out. Pancreatitis or any mass in the pancreas or calculi. Again, biliary calculi can lead on to pancreatitis. So, any calculi in the biliary system, so any hepatic biliary radicals being dilated in the liver can be seen in the ultrasound. Then the amount of ascites. So, how much is the fluid accumulation, whether it is transudate or exudate. Exudate can have multiple streak-like appearances in the fluid. Simple Exudate will not be having those things, whereas transudates, whereas exudates like tuberculous peritonitis or anything can have materials,
Glucose.
exudative materials in the ascitic fluid that can be seen in the ultrasound. And again, mass, any mass and lymph nodes. So, para-aortic group of nodes are enlarged or it is normal, all those things. And again, testicles, whether there is any testicular tumor, all these things are seen in the ultrasound.
Ultrasound.
Again, portal vein dimension. What is the normal portal vein dimension? And when you say evidence of portal hypertension by ultrasound. So if the portal vein
Not sure.
diameter is more than 1 centimeter, there is dilatation of the portal vein because of the obstruction in the liver. Architecture is lost in the liver. So there is portal hypertension and the portal vein being prominent. And PV Doppler, portal vein Doppler. So whether it is centrifugal or centripetal, based on that also you can diagnose portal hypertension. So with the in ultrasound, you can conclude a lot. So whether the patient is having portal hypertension, splenomegaly syndrome or splenic sequestrations are there or not, all these things can be any identity towards the etiology also you can get in the ultrasound. Then
Yes, ma'am.
lastly, what are all the other investigations?
We can do a ascitic tap, ma'am, to rule out spontaneous bacterial peritonitis by doing the protein and the SAAG
First, you
serum.
have to confirm. First, you have to confirm ascitic fluid, okay, therapeutic ascitic fluid, just to diagnose whether it is an exudate or transudate and it towards the etiology. And the shag ratio, I will calculate, and whether it is correlating with portal hypertension or not, that you have to do first. So, you are
Yes, ma'am.
going to do a therapeutic. It is not, sorry, it is a diagnostic tap. Diagnostic ascitic tap I will proceed with. And look into what are all the components that you will see in the ascitic fluid.
The
And which is
protein
the site
content
of tap, where you will tap.
in the.
So
Not sure, ma'am.
simultaneously you have to go through the procedure also how you should do before doing ascitic fluid tap. You are supposed to do PTINR, bleeding time, clotting time. So before any procedure, what are all the investigation that you should do or you should be seeing and doing, whether there is any contraindication for the tap. Local infection may be a contraindication. So it is better always on the left side. Okay, not
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
right side. You can have the cecum being perforated or injured because of the ascitic tap. Either it is a therapeutic or it is a diagnostic. So always prefer the on the left side. Okay, so then calculate the look for the cells. So by that way you can diagnose spontaneous bacterial peritonitis is there or not. Then going to the estimation of proteins, you calculate the SAG. SAG more than 1.1 indicates it is a due to portal hypertension or not due to portal hypertension. For that, SAG is of use. It is based on the oncotic pressure and the hydrostatic pressure. Oncotic pressure is because of the proteins. Hydrostatic is because of the portal hypertension. Because of this balance, SAG will be altered, or based on that only we are calculating the SAG and saying it is towards portal hypertension or not. If it is more than 1.1, it is the diagnosis is towards portal hypertension. So SAG ratio. Then look
The
for
glucose.
the cytology. Any malignant cells, look for cytology. You can get the nature of malignant cells. Based on that, you can identify where exactly is the primary or whatever it may be. So those are all the things that you are. And again, amylase and lipase, if you are suspecting
Pancreatitis.
pancreatic ascites. If you are suspecting tuberculosis, then you have to look into
Glucose concentration.
ADA, that is ADA. ADA you should be looking into adenosine deaminase. Okay, similar to your pleural fluid, you can look for ADA and gene expert also in diagnosing tuberculous peritonitis. So those are all the things that you do with the ascitic fluid. And then other investigations.
Ma'am, to rule out hepatorenal syndrome, we can check the creatinine values, ma'am.
Okay, that you look for. Usually it will be normal. Only the anatomically the kidneys will be normal, but you can have elevated creatinine levels. Okay, functionally. So anatomically the structure of the kidneys will be normal in hepatorenal syndrome. For that, and any electrolyte imbalance, it can again precipitate hepatic encephalopathy.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
because you are using diuretic in the treatment, the patient can have electrolyte imbalance in the form of hypokalemia or hyponatremia, dilutional hyponatremia. So the patient can exhibit neurological symptoms or precipitation of the encephalopathy. So electrolytes you have to look for, and urea creatinine to rule out hepatorenal syndrome. Then other investigations. Again, you can have what is the role of liver biopsy. Before that, you can have fibroscan,
Yes, ma'am.
elastography.
Rule out
So
cirrhosis.
again, yeah, that is a that because of that there are chances of liver biopsy. Doing liver biopsy is obsolete nowadays. Okay, so but it is of use, fibroscan or elastography. Okay,
Yes,
then
ma'am.
what about
Ma'am, there are
UGA
few.
scopy? You told there is portal hypertension.
Yes, ma'am. It will show
Diagnostic,
red streaks.
UGA scopy and look for whether the esophageal varices are there, and you can grade and whether there is congestive gastropathy. So you have to do
Upper GI
UGA
endoscopy.
scopy. Then, yeah, in the lower, what you will do?
Colonoscopy or
You are supposed to
sigmoidoscopy
do
to rule out colorectal cancer.
parrectal examination. For all the abdominal cases, you are supposed to do parrectal examination. You should be asking for the consent, and you should be doing it. If you have not done, you can say I have not done, or otherwise you have to get the consent of the patient. And if they are willing, then you are supposed to do parrectal examination, which completes the examination of the abdominal system. You can find out anal and rectal malignancies, and then hemorrhoids, which may be again where there is photosystemic collaterals. So
Yes,
there will be hemorrhoids. Hematochezia may be there. So you are supposed to do rectal examination or even proctoscopy or colonoscopy. Based on that, you can identify the photosystemic collaterals. Okay. Then portal veil Doppler already we have told. These are all the other investigations. MRI is not necessary. Ultrasound itself is enough. CT in case of pancreatic pathology and other things like ERCP, MRCP, if you are suspecting surgical cause for jaundice or some biliary obstruction or biliary cirrhosis, if you are thinking the etiology. Again, what other investigations? If you are
ma'am,
suspecting
there are few.
hepatocellular carcinoma, what etiology? Huh?
The alpha fetoprotein will be elevated.
Yeah, again that you have to do. Okay,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
a minute. If you be online, I'm having a call from Dean's office. I will attend to it. You
Yes,
be
ma'am.
online. Yes, proceed. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So,
Can we move on to the treatment, ma'am?
yeah. Move on. Okay. Good. Move
For
on.
the upper GI bleed, we'll have to give IV fluids and blood transfusion, ma'am, based on the quantity of blood lost. And we can give terlipressin or octreotide to stop the bleeding.
Okay, if it is acute and if it is a significant loss, then you are supposed to restore the BP. Now, according to you, the patient BP for the okay. So, if the patient is having hypotension and if the hemoglobin is less than 8, then you can go for blood transfusion. Otherwise, how will you treat the UGIB?
Endoscopic band ligation or sclerotherapy.
Before that, medical management and surgical management, you segregate into like that so that it is easy. So what is the medical management for UGA bleed,
Terlipressin,
or
ma'am.
what is the That way you divide and say medical management for UGI bleed.
It will be terlipressin. Medical management will be terlipressin or octreotide.
Okay. Okay. Infusion or somatostatin infusion to reduce the bleed. Okay. Then what is the surgical management?
Endoscopic band ligation or sclerotherapy.
Even before that, you can put for sense taken more tube that you can give put and arrest the acute bleeding. Then you can proceed for the rest of the things. Okay, medically you try to arrest the bleed. Then you can go for endoscopic ligation. Okay, it
For
again when you are going for endoscopic. Yeah, just say no issue.
ma'am, I was just saying
So UGI bleed you are handling then.
for hepatic
Because the
encephalopathy, we can.
patient is having hepatic encephalopathy, you are not supposed to do any shunt procedures. Because shunt procedures will precipitate hepatic encephalopathy. So, medically, you try to reduce the portal pressure and arrest the bleeding. Then you can plan the future thing in the form of shunt or tips or Mars and transplant to the extent. Okay, then other treatment, way of treatment.
For hepatic encephalopathy, we can give lactulose, ma'am.
Okay.
And for
Lactulose,
ascites,
how much you will give and how long you will give?
uh,
Lactulose, how much? What is the dose and what is the mechanism of action of the drug?
it
What is
binds
the other alternate?
it inhibits
If the
ammonia.
patient is unconscious, because the patient is in altered sensorium or whatever it may be, he may not be able to take it orally. Then you can give it as lactulose enema. The aim
Yes.
is to prevent constipation and to encourage the elimination of the products. Okay, so that ammonia level will be less. And investigations you have to do serum ammonia level also you can say. Okay, which we have left. Okay, then lactulose either orally or as a enema or through Ryle's tube depending upon the patient's alertness you can proceed with. It is 30 to 45 ml 3 to 4 times a day. The aim is to produce diarrhea, osmotic diarrhea. That should be the thing. If it is the other substance is lactitol. If lactose, if they are not able to take, with few advantages, lactitol again has a role in producing the osmotic diarrhea. Okay, which will reduce the hepatic encephalopathy. Okay, then other management.
For ascites, we can advise the patient to take a salt-restricted diet, and then we can follow it with
So you
diuretic.
have to start treatment aspect. You have to start with bed rest. Okay, bed rest itself restores many of the things. So bed rest, and then again whether you are how about the diet, salt restricted and fluid restriction, whether you are going to adapt, you are definitely going to adapt. Protein diet based on the hepatic encephalopathy. If the patient is not on encephalopathy and not prone for encephalopathy, then you can advise high protein diet so that hypoalbuminemia is getting relieved, thereby the ascites and pedal edema comes down. Otherwise, the vicious cycle of fluid retention will be there if protein is not being replaced. Where it is contraindicated is only in the situation of hepatic encephalopathy. Otherwise, you have to go for salt restriction, fluid restriction by this is achieved by maintaining the daily weight, which gives an indirect evidence of salt and water being retained or eliminated. So, daily weight is a must in these patients. And again, IO chart intake, how much the patient is given and how much the patient is excreting. So that way again it is of use. So IO chart and then fluid and salt restriction, protein restriction based on the hepatic encephalopathy or not. Then the diuretic, role of diuretic. Okay, what is the diuretic and which dose it is of use? For your
Spironolactone.
patient,
Ma'am, we give
okay, then
spironolactone followed by loop diuretic furosemide.
okay, so combination of spironolactone. What is the mechanism of action of spironolactone? Why you are preferring in
Aldosterone
ascites?
antagonist, ma'am.
Because the basic pathology deals with ADH, then it is aldosterone antagonist, it is of use. What is the commonest, what is the common dose of spironolactone and commonest side effect of
Commonest
spironolactone?
side effect is gynecomastia, ma'am.
Painful, it is more of a painful gynecomastia. Few people, for few, we have to stop also because of the painful nature. So otherwise it is a good drug, but you have to take care of the painful gynecomastia. And it is a potassium sparing diuretic. So when you give along with the loop diuretic, it has a dual and added advantage. So what is the ratio of loop diuretic to spironolactone?
Not sure, ma'am.
How much loop diuretic and how much aldactone or spironolactone you give? So 1:4. Okay, that ratio you can give. Okay, so that hypokalemia is prevented, and if the patient is in hepatic encephalopathy, loop diuretic to be avoided because it will again precipitate the hepatic encephalopathy. But you can continue spironolactone, which deals with the basic pathology. So in a minimal dose. Otherwise, massive diuretic will precipitate hepatic encephalopathy. And again, no sedatives or hypnotics if the patient is in impending hepatic encephalopathy. Only flumazenil is of use in hepatic encephalopathy. Otherwise, you should not use hypnotics or sedatives which will precipitate hepatic encephalopathy. Then to reduce the portal hypertension, what drug you will give? Not in acute stage, chronic. The patient is improving and you are supposed to give a
Beta
maintenance
blockers,
treatment. What drug you will give advice for portal hypertension?
Beta blocker.
Propranolol to be given. What are all the other drugs that is of use in portal hypertension? Beta blocker, then telepressin or the octreotide somatostatin analogs, then even nitrates has a role, okay? Nitrates can be given for portal hypertension, okay? These are all the drugs that are used in portal hypertension, okay? Then other drugs, then treatment of hepatic encephalopathy. Okay, what are all the complications of cirrhosis? With this we will conclude complications of cirrhosis.
Hepatorenal syndrome, ma'am. Hepatopulmonary
Complications of
syndrome.
cirrhosis. Okay. Hepatopulmonary syndrome. What is the clinical manifestations of hepatopulmonary syndrome?
Right-sided
The
pleural.
patient will be having orthodeoxia and the patient will be having cyanosis. So that is an indication for liver transplant. Once the patient had gone in for hepatopulmonary, it is the end stage of liver disease and you are supposed to do, it is the indication for liver transplant. Okay? So as a bridge therapy, you can go for tips or MARS, whatever it may be, till the transplant is planned. So once the patient develops hepatopulmonary, the definitive treatment is liver transplant. Okay, hepatorenal, which drug is of use in treating hepatorenal?
ACE inhibitors. Not sure, ma'am.
ACE inhibitors. Okay. Okay, there are two types of hepatorenal syndrome. Okay, then other complications of cirrhosis. These are all acute complications. You can start with simple portal hypertension. It is a complication of cirrhosis. So start with simple thing and then go for acute and critical conditions and then the malignant transformation. By that way you lead. Cirrhosis, ascites is a refractory ascites, recurrent ascites is a complication of cirrhosis. Then portal hypertension is a complication of cirrhosis. Then coagulopathy, encephalopathy.
Yes, ma'am.
What other pathies are there? So those are all complications of then the malignant transformation. These are all the common complications of cirrhosis. Okay, we will conclude the class today. Okay, hope
Yes,
you are
ma'am.
benefited with this class. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Why 52 only has attended? How many absentees? The presenter should be noting the absentees and sending it in WhatsApp because we are supposed to maintain an attendance also. So the maximum attendance I could see is only 55. What about the rest of the 6 or 7? So the presenter hereafter mark the non-participants and inform the same in WhatsApp to me. Okay? To the
Okay, ma'am.
respective professors.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, okay, thank you. Well done. You have done to a good extent. Okay, write off the case sheet and also the investigations and the differential diagnosis. So complete your case sheet so that you can copy it in your practical notebook also, and it is easy while you are going for the exams. Okay, all the best and thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you all. Okay.